10's Late News with Tracey Spicer.
Heading tonight's late news, Saddam Hussein's 11th hour backflip stops American bombers in mid-flight. Tensions inside and out of the APEC summit greet Prime Minister Howard in Malaysia, and fears their new firearms are poisoning New South Wales police officers. But first, another last-minute backflip by Saddam Hussein. He offered to let UN arms inspectors return just 1 hour before American bombers sent cruise missiles raining down on Iraqi targets. While the UN is considering Saddam's new offer, President Bill Clinton says he'll not accept any offer that includes conditions.
A statement on Iraqi television revealed Saddam's 11th hour backdown. The Iraqi people were celebrating Baghdad Day on the streets as their government sent a letter to the United Nations saying UN weapons inspectors could resume their work immediately.
We have done that upon appeals and requests from friendly governments like the Russian government and from the Secretary General, who we trust.
President Clinton had already approved a military attack, forces within an hour showering Iraq with cruise missiles when word of the letter surfaced. The United Nations Secretary General called the Iraqi move a step in the right direction.
This seems to be a positive development.
The White House is taking a hard line about Iraq's attempts to set conditions with its offer.
What we expect to see from the Iraqis is a clear declaration, a clear statement that they will fully cooperate with UNSCOM.
More tough talk from American allies in the crisis.
Nothing less than unconditional compliance will do.
The President is sending Vice President Al Gore to the Asian Pacific Economic Summit so he can monitor the crisis with Iraq as the world waits to see what will happen next. In the United States, Pam Mackay, 10 News.
Deepening tensions greeted Prime Minister Howard in Malaysia, both inside and out of the APEC summit. On the streets, there have been more ugly clashes as demonstrators demand the release of former Deputy Anwar Ibrahim.
On the eve of the APEC summit in Kuala Lumpur, demonstrators took to the streets. Things turned nasty when the protesters identified and attacked an undercover policeman. He fired his pistol into the air to disperse the mob. A police motorcycle was set on fire and water cannon trucks moved in. Scenes like this are likely every night this week as world leaders attend the APEC summit. The Australian Prime Minister flew to Kuala Lumpur today, but the impact of the summit has been devalued by President Clinton's decision not to attend.
There are reasons for the President not coming. I understand those reasons. Clearly, they are related to what is happening in Iraq, and the President's decision is entirely understandable.
I regret very much that Mr. Clinton is not able to come here. He has never been to Malaysia.
The political turmoil in Malaysia has overshadowed the purpose of APEC, economic reform. And now Japan has emerged as a key opponent of trade liberalisation. And so the prospects of a successful meeting appear limited. Jeremy Thompson, 10 News.
Back home, a Queensland woman has been charged with the murder of a newborn baby whose dismembered remains were unearthed 2 months ago. Police arrested and charged the 22-year-old woman at Logan in Brisbane South early today. She's been remanded in custody to face court tomorrow. Her arrest follows an 8-week investigation sparked by the discovery of a baby's leg near a driveway in the village. The rest of her body was found in nearby bush. A new call for tougher penalties in a bid to smash Perth's outlaw bikie gangs. The government's considering fines of up to $50,000 and 5 years jail as it tries to prevent more bloodshed.
On the road to breaking the code of silence protecting WA's outlaw bikie gangs, and the government's out to secure tough new penalties to make people talk.
Then the maximum penalty is $1,000 or 6 months in jail. It's pathetic. And it's been generally recognised to be totally ineffective. Now, I think it should go to $50,000 or 5 years, because that's the penalty for contempt in the district court in this state.
New powers which would allow the National Crime Authority to target bikie associates friends and family.
So that you can get hold of some of these people and really shake them, and maybe they will then open their mouths and tell what little they know, which will help to get the picture together, to get at the big people.
Both the WA government and opposition support the call. Before flying interstate today to appeal for federal government backing, Mr Prince again warned outlaw bikies they would not be tolerated.
And all I can say as far as that's concerned to the bikies involved, this is not going to stop. Gallipoli will carry on until we fix this, and they stop.
Alison Blanksby, 10 News.
And still ahead in 10's late news, an informal curfew helps combat new rioting in Indonesia. And hopes for a heavenly show when Earth hits a sea of space debris this week. An informal curfew has helped return calm to the Indonesian capital after another 24 hours of violent protests. President B.J. Habibie ordered troops to crack down on rioters after the looting and burning spread to other centres.
This morning they buried yesterday's dead. This was the funeral of an 18-year-old science student shot in the chest by the army while he was demonstrating peacefully. Thousands turned up to mourn him and to condemn the Army's Chief of Staff, once held in high respect. General Wiranto, it read, stepped down. Yesterday, soldiers shot students who demonstrated peacefully. Today, they stood by and watched as the mob went on the rampage. These people aren't here for political reform. They're here for the loot. For the destitute, anything will do, as long as it's free. One reason the soldiers don't intervene is that they're outnumbered. The other is that this is Chinatown, a place where governments have traditionally allowed the mob to let off steam in times of crisis, at a terrible price. In May, scores of ethnic Chinese perished in flames like these. The authorities don't want a repeat of the May riots, but it may be too late. Helicopters flew in reinforcements today, but this is already a city unhinged.
Palestinian leader Yasser Arafat has vowed to have an independent Palestinian state by next May. His promise came as thousands celebrated the 10th anniversary of his original Declaration of Independence. Although that call was acclaimed by more than 100 governments, it's still only a dream for Palestinians. He was drowned out by jubilant cheers after saying Arab East Jerusalem would be the Palestinian state's capital, whether Israel liked it or not. The crowned heads of Europe led an impressive list of VIPs as Prince Charles ended a hectic weekend of birthday celebrations. The lavish party at his country home was organised and hosted by Camilla Parker Bowles.
Among the first to arrive for this evening's festivities, Camilla Parker Bowles, who has planned and arranged the whole party, just as the Prince did for her 50th birthday. A few minutes earlier, the two young princes, William and Harry, had swept into Highgrove in separate cars. And they were followed by Princess Margaret, the most senior member of the royal family to attend this party, of which Prince Charles and his non-negotiable partner are co-hosts. The guest list reads like a who's who, with some 12 kings and queens from Norway, Denmark, Sweden, Holland and Spain. Throughout the day, provisions for the 250 guests have been delivered to Highgrove, much of it local produce from the nearby town of Tetbury. There, earlier today, one of the partygoers, Prince Edward's girlfriend, Sophie Rhys-Jones, was spotted shopping, perhaps for a last-minute birthday present. Here, opinion about Prince Charles and his private life is generally sympathetic.
As far as Camilla is concerned, I think he should be allowed to live in peace with her and do as he wishes.
I really think it's their business and nobody else's.
And those views would certainly be echoed by tonight's guests, among them Rowan Atkinson.
But in the country at large, the public mood about Camilla Parker Bowles remains volatile, which is one reason why the Queen and the Duke of Edinburgh have chosen not to come to their son's party tonight. Whatever their feelings about the relationship, they clearly feel unable as yet to condone it publicly. And so, instead, they're spending the weekend at Sandringham.
There could be a striking heavenly spectacle this weekend when Earth hits a sea of space debris. While it's no threat, there are fears for the hundreds of satellites orbiting the planet.
On November 17th,
The Earth passes through a dust storm in space. Meteors no bigger than a grain of sand, hurling 45 miles a second, heat up, slam into the Earth's atmosphere, and ignite into an array of shooting stars, called the Leonid meteor shower. None of the tiny meteors will hit Earth, but some say the skies in certain areas of the world could look almost as dramatic as this scene from the TV show Star Trek: The Next Generation. It's been recorded in literature since 909 AD. These paintings of the Leonid meteor shower date back to 1833.
They all appear to come from the constellation Leo, hence the name Leonid. And they are debris left over from the disintegration of Comet Tempel-Tuttle.
Comet Tempel-Tuttle orbits the Sun once every 33 years. Every November, the Earth passes through some part of its long trail of debris. Since the comet's orbit brought it close to the Earth this year, the trail of debris is fresh and concentrated with tiny meteoroids that will hit the Earth's atmosphere and explode into shooting stars. People living in Australia and Asia will have a night sky view of the storm at its peak. While the atmosphere shields the Earth itself from this flying debris, there are about 600 satellites orbiting above the atmosphere that provide everything from cell phone and pager service to air traffic information. No one knows how these satellites will weather the storm. Even though meteors have hit orbiting spacecraft before, causing damage like this ding on the Space Shuttle Endeavour, scientists are less worried about physical damage to satellites and more worried about the electric charge the particles could create when they hit a satellite. That energy could wreak havoc with the instruments on board. NASA will also fly 2 aircraft at 35,000 feet to study the storm.
And the best chance we'll have of seeing anything should come around 2 in the morning until sunrise. But Next in 10's Late News claims new firearms are poisoning Sydney police officers. And a failed record bid still pays its way. Several police firing ranges in New South Wales have been shut down amid fears they're behind lead poisoning in some officers. Poor ventilation is being blamed for allowing vapours from ammunition in new firearms to build to dangerous levels.
Our first line of defence learn to defend themselves at firing ranges, but they're suffering in the process.
Our members have suffered severe lead poisoning as a consequence of being exposed to the lead levels in the ammunition.
New South Wales Police are changing to the high-tech Glock semi-automatics, but training in ranges with poor ventilation has caused a build-up of lead vapours discharged from the pistols.
Those vapours go through the body, through both the skin and obviously in through the breathing.
Overall, up to 400 officers will undergo blood tests in the next few weeks. 16 have already registered levels 4 and 5 times higher than health standards. Those who are affected are also having family members tested in case welcome home hugs affected others.
This is a disgrace. The service have an obligation to ensure the safety of our members.
I am somewhat surprised because the Glocks were tested by safety people, by experts.
The state government ordered an urgent inquiry and has stopped training on 3 ranges. The Police Association plans legal action, saying the problem could have been prevented by using lead-free ammunition. Jacinta Hocking, 10 News.
Western Australian police are investigating reports fake driver's licences are available on the internet. It's claimed a London-based group is offering false identification, including driver's licences, from several countries. They're said to be on offer in Western Australia, Victoria and New South Wales at a cost of $60 to $100 each. Australian doctors have renewed their demands for a national ban on junior boxing. Their plea comes as boys and girls as young as 10 prepare for amateur championship bouts on Queensland's Gold Coast.
Tomorrow, 151 amateur boxers, 20 females, the youngest just 10, will step into the ring on the Gold Coast amid calls for a junior ban on the sport.
I think it's just a knee-jerk reaction myself. They just can't get mentally used to the idea of girls becoming engaged in combat.
The 3-day tournament was to have been held in Sydney, but New South Wales doesn't allow women to box. Tomorrow, Queensland Cabinet ministers will be asked to ban the sport for under-18s. Doctors are hoping it will mark the beginning of the end of junior bouts across Australia. The Australian Medical Association wants all boxing banned, but it'll settle for an end to children in the ring, male or female.
It's not a gender issue, it's an age issue, it's a health issue.
But young girls competing tomorrow defend their right to fight.
Girls should have an equal right to fight if they want, because it's just another sport and girls can enjoy it just as much as boys can.
Melissa Toomey, 10 News.
Western Australia's gay and lesbian community is making a controversial appeal for equal rights. More than 6,000 postcards highlighting discrimination against same-sex couples are being mailed to businesses. Former Human Rights Commissioner Sir Ronald Wilson is behind the move to amend what he calls the worst anti-gay laws in Australia. Gays and lesbians can still be refused housing and employment because of their sexuality. Australian doctors are concerned by a big increase in the incidence of spinal injuries in diving accidents. They say Christmas is the peak time for spinal cord damage and warn people to be wary around water.
While car accidents tops the list of causes, diving or jumping into water without knowing what's under the surface is increasingly resulting in permanent damage.
It doesn't have to happen. These are accidents that are preventable, and people need to be aware that it could be them that's sitting in the wheelchair tomorrow.
At the launch of Spinal Awareness Week, Dr. Jonathan Strayer, a spinal damage victim himself, says falls and sporting injuries are also major causes. He says the most common victims are males aged between 15 and 24, but everyone needs to be cautious.
This 1 second of good judgment can spare them a lifetime of misery.
Also needing to be wary of spinal damage, housewives. The Chiropractors Association says housework is responsible for many women having bad backs, which can result in migraines and premenstrual syndrome.
We see a lot of people who come in and they've done something like making the bed, and they've done it in an incorrect way where they've bent over awkwardly and twisted, and their backs are just really badly damaged.
The most important rules to remember are always bend the knees, stand straight as much as possible and never hunch over from the hips. Katrina Shute, 10 News.
A new squad of dogs that can sniff out explosives is being put together for Sydney's 2000 Olympics. The first recruits are 5 American-trained Labradors, and they showed off their skills today. More locally bred labs will join the Special Explosive Detection Unit to check for bombs during the Sydney Games. Olympic Security Commander Paul McKinnon says they'll be key players in ensuring the safety of athletes, tourists and locals.
Generally, as a commodity for saving human life, they're very high performers.
And in Melbourne, Australian Customs is boasting a new litter of pups with royal pedigrees. Minister Amanda Vanstone met the 3-day-old youngsters sired by one of the Queen's best retrievers. They were bred from frozen semen provided by the Queen's kennels at Sandringham.
In Europe, and not many people.
Foster families will raise another litter of 6 pups before they return for training as drug sniffers. A happy end to a search for a toddler who wandered away from a family camp north of Perth. The alarm was raised early today when the girl vanished into thick scrub on the banks of a river.
Sunburnt, dehydrated, but otherwise none the worse for 5 hours on the run. 2.5-year-old Jessica Bailey disappeared from a campsite at Regan's Ford near Gingin early this morning, sparking a major search of the nearby river and bushland.
They came into the roadhouse and the little girl said that her sister was missing, and then the alarm was raised.
Young Jessica was finally discovered by Polair 1 about 3 kilometres from her family's camp, but she didn't give up without a fight.
When they lowered the policeman down, she was a little bit frightened and took off, so fortunately, but she was well.
The toddler was taken to Joondalup Hospital for a routine checkup, a relieved mum by her side. Graham Butler, 10 News.
South Australians put their best feet forward in a bid for an Australian dance record. More than 600 line dancers kicked, tapped and clapped their way through the song Boot Scootin' Boogie. However, not quite enough turned up to snatch the national title for the longest dance line. But their efforts paid off for the Crippled Children's Association, which gets the $5,000 raised. I'll be back shortly with the national weather details, an unusual job for Queensland fireys, and then it's sports tonight with Matthew White.
Thanks, Tracey. Coming up shortly, all the drama from the FAI 1000 Classic at Bathurst, including the kids who conquered the mountain.
Take 2 days of coverage.
Now the national weather picture, and today was fine from Cairns through Townsville down to Brisbane. A bit of haze around Sydney, clear skies for Canberra, showers around Hobart, cloud over Melbourne, fine in Adelaide and Perth, patchy cloud across the centre and fine in Darwin. The satellite shows mainly clear skies right over Australia with only scattered patches of light cloud. On the synoptic, low pressure systems dominate the tropics while a high is developed in the Bight, holding those cold fronts south of the continent. So tomorrow should bring more fine weather to Cairns, Townsville and Brisbane. Some showers around Sydney, a bit cloudy in Canberra, skies clearing for Hobart, then fine for Melbourne, Adelaide and Perth and across the centre, and late storms are expected around the top end. An unusual rescue operation on Queensland's Gold Coast after a young bird fell from its nest. The baby frogmouth was being attacked by other birds when it was discovered on a hinterland property. Rescuers nicknamed him Mitch, then called in the local fire brigade with its long ladder to put it back on the bough. Mother frogmouth was rather indignant, but the human foster parents were overjoyed.
It doesn't matter if it's a bird or human or what, it's a life. You've got to look after what's on the planet.
And that's all in 10's Late News just now. Thanks for joining us. Don't forget our next national bulletin with Jason Cameron at 11:30 in the morning. But stick around now for Sports Tonight with Matthew White. Good night.